we have to play complementary football to have a chance versus a good football team. And they had a drive start on the 16 after a big punt return that led to a touchdown. They had a drive start on the 18 after a muffed punt that led to a touchdown. They had a drive start on the 25 after a failed 4th and inches, led to a touchdown.
That's not a big problem, I'll say, to me. I just got to be better overall. I got to be able to rally everybody together, when adversity.
The Cleveland Browns just dropped an absolute bombshell that has the entire NFL world spinning on its axis. And trust me when I tell you, what you're about to hear is going to make your jaw hit the floor so hard it'll leave a dent. Word is leaking out of the Browns front office like a busted dam, and the news is nothing short of shocking. Despite Shedeur Sanders coming in and winning his very first game as a starter, despite making plays that would make veteran quarterbacks weep with envy, and despite throwing a jaw-dropping 53-yard pass that looked like something out of a video game, the Cleveland Browns are apparently still not convinced. That's right, you heard that correctly. The Browns are reportedly still planning to draft a quarterback in the 2026 draft, and Shedeur Sanders, the man who just won them a game they had no business winning, has to somehow prove himself all over again. Let that sink in for a moment. This young man walked into one of the most dysfunctional situations in professional football, took the reins of an offense that had been sputtering and coughing like a broken-down car all season long, and immediately led them to victory. But according to insider reports coming straight from Cleveland's own media machine, that's apparently not enough. The Browns front office is sitting there with their arms crossed, tapping their feet, waiting for Shedeur to convince them that he's the future of their franchise. The audacity of it all is absolutely mind-blowing. Now, before we dive deep into this absolute circus of a situation, let's get our facts straight about what's actually happening up there in Cleveland. The Browns made a trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars last year that netted them an additional first-round pick. At the time, everyone assumed this was part of some grand master plan, some brilliant chess move that would set the franchise up for success. Fast forward to today, and we're learning that this extra pick might be used to draft another quarterback, even though they just spent a high pick on Shedeur Sanders. The Browns currently hold the number 6 pick in the first round thanks to their victory over the Raiders, a victory that Shedeur Sanders delivered for them, and they also possess the number 2 overall pick from the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's 2 top 10 picks, and the word on the street is that they're eyeing quarterbacks with at least one of them. Here's where this story gets absolutely wild and takes a turn into territory that would make even the most seasoned NFL observers shake their heads in disbelief. Mary Kay Cabot, a respected Cleveland Browns insider who's been covering this team for years, recently took to social media to share her thoughts on the situation, and what she wrote has ignited a firestorm of controversy that's spreading through the NFL community like wildfire. In her article, which has been making the rounds on every football forum and social media platform imaginable, she posed a question that has fans absolutely livid. She asked whether Shedeur Sanders has a chance to convince the Browns that they don't need to draft a first-round quarterback, and whether he'll even finish out the season. Let me repeat that because it's so absurd it bears repeating. She's questioning whether the rookie quarterback who just won his first start will even finish the season. The disrespect in that question is palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife, and it speaks to a larger problem that seems to be plaguing the Cleveland media's coverage of Shedeur Sanders. Despite coming in and winning immediately, despite making plays that no other quarterback on that roster could make, despite breathing life into an offense that looked dead in the water, there's this weird hesitancy, this bizarre reluctance to fully embrace what Sanders brings to the table. It's like watching someone win the lottery and then having people tell them they should probably keep their day job just in case. Let's talk about that 53-yard pass for a minute, because this isn't just any throw we're discussing here. This was a throw that defied logic, that broke the laws of physics, that made defensive coordinators across the league sit up and take notice. When Shedeur Sanders unleashed that football downfield, it sailed through the air with the kind of velocity and precision that separates the good quarterbacks from the truly elite ones. The placement was perfect, the timing was impeccable, and the degree of difficulty was off the charts. This is the kind of throw that ends up on highlight reels for years, the kind of throw that gets replayed during draft coverage when analysts are trying to explain what arm talent really means. And yet, somehow, some way, there are people in Cleveland's media ecosystem treating it like it was a fluke, like it was some kind of lucky accident that couldn't possibly be repeated. Here's the thing that makes this situation even more frustrating for anyone who's been paying attention to the Browns this season. Before Shedeur Sanders started, this team was losing every single Sunday like clockwork. They were finding new and creative ways to disappoint their fan base week after week. The offense looked anemic, lifeless, devoid of any spark or creativity whatsoever. Then Sanders steps onto the field, and suddenly the Browns remember how to win football games. The correlation isn't subtle. It's not hidden beneath layers of statistical analysis. It's right there in plain sight for anyone willing to look at it objectively. The Browns were losing before Sanders played. Sanders plays, the Browns win. It's not rocket science, folks. But according to Mary Kay Cabot's article, even if Sanders finishes out the season strong, it would still represent a small sample size for a rookie quarterback. She wrote those words, small sample size, as if the 6 games remaining in the season wouldn't be enough to evaluate what they have in Sanders, as if the film study, the practice performances, the preparation, the leadership qualities, and the actual game results wouldn't provide sufficient evidence to make an informed decision about the future of the quarterback position. The dismissive nature of that characterization has Sanders' supporters absolutely up in arms, and rightfully so. Think about what the Browns were trotting out there before Sanders got his opportunity. The offense, under the previous quarterback situation, was painful to watch. Drives would stall out before they even got started. The passing game lacked any sort of rhythm or timing. Receivers were running routes with no real hope that the ball would arrive on time or in a catchable location. The entire operation looked like it was being run by people who had never actually played football before. It was embarrassing for a franchise that has already endured more than its fair share of embarrassment over the past 2 decades. Then Shedeur Sanders enters the picture, and it's like someone flipped a switch. Suddenly, receivers are getting the ball in positions where they can make plays. Suddenly, the offense is moving the chains and sustaining drives. Suddenly, there's hope, there's excitement, there's a belief that maybe, just maybe, this team might actually have something special brewing. And the response from the front office and certain members of the media is to question whether this is real, to wonder if they should hedge their bets, to suggest that maybe they still need to use premium draft capital on another quarterback just in case. The comparison to other quarterbacks in the upcoming 2026 draft class is particularly interesting because it highlights just how special that 53-yard throw really was. Sanders' critics can point to prospects from Indiana, from South Carolina. They can mention Arch Manning or any other highly touted quarterback prospect you want to name, but the simple truth is that none of them have made a throw in a real NFL game situation quite like the one Sanders made. College tape is one thing, but executing at that level in the professional ranks is something else entirely. Sanders has already proven he can do it when the stakes are real and the competition is the best in the world. What makes this situation even more confusing is the mixed messaging coming out of Cleveland. On one hand, you have members of the media who were supposedly praising Sanders, talking about him like he was the second coming of some legendary quarterback, building him up and creating expectations that he was the answer to all of Cleveland's prayers. Then, almost immediately after he wins his first game, those same voices start hedging, start introducing doubt, start talking about small sample sizes, and the need to keep all options open for the draft. The inconsistency is jarring and raises questions about what's really going on behind the scenes. There's a broader issue at play here that extends beyond just Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns. It speaks to how young quarterbacks are evaluated in today's NFL, how organizations make decisions about their most important position, and how media narratives can shape public perception in ways that might not align with reality. Sanders is being held to a different standard than many quarterbacks who came before him, and the reasons for that are worth examining. Is it because he's a rookie? Is it because of his last name and the expectations that come with being the son of a legendary player? Is it something else entirely? The questions linger without clear answers. The fact that the Browns are even discussing drafting another first-round quarterback after investing in Sanders is a red flag the size of Texas. It suggests either a fundamental lack of confidence in their own evaluation process, an unwillingness to commit to a direction, or perhaps some internal disagreement about what the team needs going forward. None of those scenarios inspire confidence in an organization that desperately needs to project stability and competence to a fan base that's been burned more times than they can count. Let's consider the alternative scenario for a moment. What if the Browns had gone into the season with Sanders as their starter from day one? What if he'd had the entire offseason to work with the first-team offense, to build chemistry with his receivers, to fully digest the playbook and understand the nuances of the offensive system? It's entirely possible, even probable, that the Browns would be in a much better position in the standings right now. Instead, they waited. They hesitated. They played it safe with quarterbacks who clearly weren't the answer, and they lost game after game until they finally had no choice but to turn to the rookie. The drama surrounding this situation is amplified by the passion of Sanders' supporters, many of whom followed him to Cleveland specifically because they believe in his talent and his potential to be a franchise quarterback in the NFL. These fans aren't casual observers. They've watched Sanders play for years. They've seen him perform in big games against top competition. They've witnessed his growth as a player and as a leader, and now they're watching the team that drafted him treat him like he's some kind of question mark despite evidence to the contrary. The frustration is real, and it's justified. From a pure football perspective, the decision facing the Browns should be straightforward. You have a young quarterback who won his first start, who made throws that demonstrate elite arm talent, who showed poise in the pocket, and who gave your offense a spark it had been missing all season long. The logical move would be to build around him, to use those precious draft picks to surround him with weapons and protection, to give him every opportunity to succeed, rather than immediately looking for his replacement before he's even had a chance to fail. But logic doesn't always prevail in the NFL, especially not in Cleveland, where the franchise has cycled through quarterbacks like most people change their socks. The timing of Mary Kay Cabot's article and the questions it raises is particularly suspect because it comes right after Sanders delivered a victory. If there was ever a time to give a rookie quarterback the benefit of the doubt, if there was ever a moment to show some faith in your young signal caller, it would be right after he wins you a football game. Instead, the immediate response is to question whether he'll even finish the season and to float the idea that the team is still planning to draft another quarterback. The message being sent is clear, and it's not a positive one. It's a message that says nothing you do will ever be enough, that you're always going to be on trial, that the organization isn't really in your corner no matter what happens on the field. The relationship between a franchise and its quarterback has to be built on trust and commitment, especially in those crucial early years. A rookie quarterback needs to know that the organization believes in him, that they're invested in his success, that they're not constantly looking over his shoulder at the next shiny prospect coming down the pipeline. Without that foundation of trust, it becomes almost impossible for a young quarterback to develop the confidence and swagger necessary to succeed at the highest level. The Browns risk undermining Sanders before he's even had a real chance to establish himself, and that would be a tragedy not just for Sanders, but for the franchise as well. Looking at this from Sanders' perspective, imagine being in his shoes for a moment. You work your entire life to get to the NFL. You get drafted by a team that desperately needs a quarterback. You wait patiently for your opportunity while watching the team lose week after week. Finally, you get your shot. You go out there and you win. You make plays that showcase your immense talent. And then, instead of being celebrated, instead of being embraced as the future, you hear whispers that the team is still planning to draft your replacement. How is that supposed to make you feel? How does that impact your confidence and your relationship with the organization? These are real human elements that get lost in the transactional nature of professional sports. The Browns have 2 valuable first-round picks in the upcoming draft, and how they choose to use those picks will say everything about what they really think of Shedeur Sanders and the direction of the franchise. If they use one of those picks on a quarterback, it sends an unmistakable message that they don't believe Sanders is the answer, regardless of what they might say publicly. If they use those picks to build around Sanders, to get him weapons at receiver or tight end, to improve the offensive line that protects him, to bolster a defense that can keep games close, then that sends a different message entirely. It says, we believe in you, we're committed to you, and we're going to give you the tools you need to succeed. The comparison to other quarterback prospects in the 2026 draft is inevitable, but it's also somewhat unfair to Sanders. Draft prospects are evaluated based on projection and potential, based on what scouts think they might become in the future. Sanders is being evaluated based on actual NFL performance, which is a much higher standard. He's not getting credit for the fact that he's already cleared the hurdle that every college quarterback has to clear. He's already proven he can play at this level. That should count for something. That should earn him more than 6 games to prove himself. The dysfunction that seems to perpetually swirl around the Browns organization is legendary at this point, the stuff of NFL lore and cautionary tales. But this situation with Sanders has the potential to be different. This could be the moment where the Browns finally get it right, where they identify their franchise quarterback early and commit to building around him for the long term. Or it could be another chapter in the never-ending saga of Cleveland Browns quarterback failures, another talented young player who gets chewed up and spit out by an organization that can't seem to get out of its own way. The choice is theirs to make, and the consequences will reverberate for years to come. What makes this story so compelling, so frustrating, and so important is that it represents a crossroads not just for Shedeur Sanders and not just for the Cleveland Browns, but for how we evaluate young quarterbacks in the modern NFL. Sanders has done everything right so far. He's prepared, he's performed, he's won. And yet, somehow, that's still not enough to earn full confidence from the organization and certain members of the media. If winning your first start and making spectacular plays isn't enough, then what is? What standard are we holding these young quarterbacks to? And is that standard even reasonable or achievable? The next 6 games of the season represent a crucial period for Sanders and for the Browns. Every throw will be scrutinized, every decision will be analyzed, every result will be used as evidence either for or against Sanders' case as the franchise quarterback. The pressure on a rookie quarterback is always immense, but Sanders is operating under an additional layer of pressure, knowing that the organization apparently has one foot out the door already, ready to draft his replacement if he doesn't meet some undefined standard of excellence. It's not a fair position to be in, but it's the reality of playing quarterback for the Cleveland Browns in 2024. So where does all this leave us? We have a rookie quarterback who won his first start, made incredible plays, and showed flashes of being exactly what the Browns have been desperately searching for over the past 2 decades. And yet, the response from the organization and parts of the media has been lukewarm at best, skeptical at worst. The disconnect between what's happening on the field and how it's being received is stark and undeniable. Shedeur Sanders deserves better than this. He deserves a real opportunity to prove himself without the constant threat of replacement hanging over his head. He deserves an organization that's fully committed to his development and success. The Cleveland Browns find themselves at a critical juncture. They can double down on Shedeur Sanders, embrace him as their quarterback of the future, and use their valuable draft capital to build a championship-caliber team around him. Or they can continue to hedge their bets, keep their options open, and potentially repeat the same mistakes they've made with young quarterbacks in the past. The choice seems obvious to anyone watching objectively, but history has shown us that obvious choices and the Cleveland Browns don't always go hand in hand. This is a story that will unfold over the coming weeks and months, and it's one that every NFL fan should be paying attention to because it has implications that extend far beyond just one team or one player. Now it's your turn to weigh in on this absolute madness. Do you think Shedeur Sanders has already proven enough to be the Browns' franchise quarterback? Are you shocked that Cleveland is still considering drafting another quarterback after Sanders won his first start? What would you do if you were running the Browns? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below because this conversation is just getting started. Make sure you smash that like button if this story has you as fired up as it has us. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another update on this developing situation. Share this video with every football fan, because this is the kind of drama that defines NFL seasons. Until next time, keep following this story because something tells me we haven't heard the last of the Shedeur Sanders saga in Cleveland. Peace out.